online. So if you're watching us on YouTube or through Facebook, the link should be in the description or in our hub. If you want to join us, we're on Discord. So come join us, and we're in the Throwback Thinking Thursday channel under our Discord channel. So if you use our hub link, you'll find us there as well. Also, if you're on Meetup and on Facebook, you can also find our events through there as well. So you can join us on here and watch, or you can stay online and leave fun comments. So we're going to go ahead and start. Flora's going to show us the video, which is Attracting Wealth Abundantly with my multi-million-dollar crypto friend, Ryan. And so we're going to have that for you right now. And for those of us who are in here, make sure you mute your video and your microphone. I'll be doing the same as well. And she's going to screen share real quick. So we're going to go ahead and move.
Mute it.
Of the screen, should be several circles on the bottom. If you tap the screen, 4 or 5 circles should show up on the bottom of your screen. One of them is a microphone. Tap that and it'll mute it.
Yep, the only button that looks like a microphone.
Go all the way. Plus sign. No, I'm gone.
So thank you everyone again for coming to another AQ Adaptive Intelligence Thinking Thursdays. And today's very special topic is going to be attracting wealth abundantly. And we have an amazing guest today I look up to myself, and his name is Ryan Hauser. So Ryan is a loon. He made several $1 million making signs. I'm sure you've probably seen him if you've ever been to Vegas. He's owned multiple businesses, and he's also a crypto investor. And so he owns his own online teaching company, and he's an active investor, and he's taught me a lot on crypto investing. He's actually inspired me to get into it. So I'm super excited to share his knowledge, his wisdom with all of you guys today. Not only that, but he's also a father, and he's a resident badass. If you check him out on all his social media, you'll see some interesting things on there as well. And if you want more of Ryan, just go to ryanhauser.com. And so today's topic, like I mentioned, is attracting wealth abundantly.
I have to.
And no, I'm not just talking about Dogecoin. I'm talking about how he started, how he developed, how he got his millions, and how he's giving back to us by sharing his wisdom, his knowledge, and helping us get to that point as well. Hey, Ryan, how's it going today?
Hey, bud, just took myself off mute. Let me know if you got any feedback, and I'll turn it down. I don't have this is the first time I use Google Meet, so we're just kind of winging it.
All good, brother, all good. So, you promised us one joke. Make it a good one.
Well, it's not really a joke, but it is a story as to why I've always been self-employed. Because I can't really get jobs. So one time I went in to get a job interview, and anyways, you walk in, normally when you go get a job interview, it's just you know, like you set up that appointment, you just you. Well, I walk in there and I go to the receptionist. I'm like, here, I'm for the job interview. And she's like, okay, just go into that room and wait right there. Well, I get into the room and there's like 20, 25, well, maybe probably closer to 20 people in there. So I thought I went in the wrong room. And I just kind of look around, and I'm very introverted, so it's not like I'm wanting to talk to anybody. But one guy makes eye contact to me, and I said, are you here for a job interview? He said, yeah. So there was a seat right beside him, so I sit down there. And anyways, I'm just kind of wondering, like, this is kind of weird. I was almost about ready to walk out. And anyways, people were coming out of this one office. Like somebody would come out, and then he would call a name, somebody else would go in, and they weren't lasting 20 seconds. Hopefully I tell the story right. But anyway, so I look at the guy, and I'm just like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. He says, but they're going in there, and they're coming right out right away. And so I asked if he was going for the same job that I was, and he said he was. So I'm like, okay, I'm in the right place. Anyways, his name gets called. He goes up in there, and anyways, he comes out literally like 15 seconds later. And I kind of look at him, like, I kind of shrug, like, what's going on? I mean, we're supposed to be having interviews here, and they're not even lasting half a minute. And as he walks by me, he says, don't say anything about his ears. And I thought he was joking. I didn't know this guy. Remember, I've only said like about 3 sentences to the guy. And so I kind of thought, like, what a loser. Like, why would he even say, you know what I mean, type thing. Anyways, my name gets called. Well, lo and behold, I get up there. I go into the office, and I look at the guy, and he had no ears. So now I'm trying to not smile or laugh because I'm like, maybe that's what he did it for. Anyways, first question the guy asked me, he says, what's the first thing you notice about me when you look at me? And that's what it clued in. Everybody else was saying that he's had no ears, and they were probably kicking him out. So I had to think on the spot. I'm like, your contact lenses. And he's like, well, how do you know I wear contacts? I said, well, you can't wear glasses because you don't have any ears. And so anyways, I didn't get the job. So I think I must have to be self-employed. No, anyways, it is a joke.
I like that one.
So there's your joke.
Thank you. So I'm sure people will want more jokes later, but let's get into what you're actually really, really famous for. And it's, being able to do what's really hard for most people, and that's attracting wealth very abundantly. So, tell us a little bit about how you started. I'm sure there's another reason. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick.
Besides the no ears guy.
Oh yeah, no. I don't know. I had a rough childhood, to be honest with you, like a real rough childhood, and so it made me have to fight literally right out of the gate. And it was just me out of my siblings type thing. So it was like one of those things you're kind of looking around like, why me and whatever. I was born 10 months after my brother, and so I was kind of the mistake. I mean, who the hell plans to go home from giving birth and getting pregnant again? So I was treated as such, and so it always made that fight in me. And so anyways, in high school, I had a car audio company, and I wanted to always go back to the States because I was born in the States but raised in Canada. And so anyways, I wanted to go back to the States, so I decided to possibly move my car audio company to the US. I went and visited there for 2 weeks, and it just wasn't right yet. I went back home and, continued on. Well, because I was gone for 2 weeks, it kind of got a little bit slow. So I went to phone up to rent a sign for the side of the road. They put those big bold boards. I quote for like $375 for 2 months. And I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, dude, I could probably make that sign cheaper than that. So I made the sign, I put my advertising on it. And as I'm really ready to go put it out on the road, I'm like, dude, I made it for like 160 something bucks. I wonder if I can rent it out. I went to the nearest strip mall, rented it to Chung's Oriental Eatery for $350 for 2 months. So I went into the sign business after that.
Oh, interesting.
And, anyways, I did 159 grand out of grade 12. And
wow.
So I made more money than all my teachers at the time. And so I don't even have a high school diploma because I just already know. And I just kind of went on from there. I got into signs, and then customers would ask, I was just doing rentals. They would be like, do you do this? Do you do that? And I would just say yes to everything. And then they would ask me, well, how much? I had no ideas. I'd never built one before. So I'd phone another company, get a quote. I would undercut the quote. And then when I got the job, I would just learn. I've done that my whole life. I jump in with both feet. I learn how to swim when I'm in there.
That's impressive.
Gone to a sign company. I actually got into the golf pro business. I had my pro card in 2001.
Wow.
Found out there was no money in that. Went back to working for myself. Then moved to Vegas. Started a sign company there. Then I got into real estate. I invented a product, brought it to market, had a commercial and real estate deal, and just said that's it. Got rid of my sign company, got into real estate, and then got into online marketing a few years later. So I'm trying to, speed it up. There's reasons I did what I did, but now I'm all into digital marketing, and it's really hard to get out of crypto and digital marketing. Like I used to consult a lot of businesses, brick and mortar companies, and I'm just the wrong guy for that anymore because there's too many easy ways to make money out there now.
Right.
The overhead and get the high returns. And so
absolutely, yeah.
Push everybody that way.
Yeah. So I'm sure that in your life, you've had a lot of influences, like positive influences that helped you drive. Because it's like you had, that pent up, I need to do something with my life, but that's one thing. But then it's another to have drive, to have a specific purpose. Right. So,
you know what? Honestly, I think my drive came from being told I'm stupid and not going to amount to anything and stuff throughout my childhood. To be honest with you, it was not a mentor. There would be certain people that I would look up to, and then the sad part is when I would get close to them, I would find out they're not what I thought they were, and it was very disappointing. And it still happens to this day. And so I'm not saying that I didn't learn from people. Like, for example, I did learn a lot from my dad. I learned a lot from my parents, exactly not how to not parent. It's like just because you're getting a raw end of a deal or something bad, you learn from it. And I'm definitely not afraid of making mistakes. I tell people if they think I'm smarter than them or if they think I have more money than them, I just say I've made more mistakes than you. you know, because if you don't make a mistake, you can't learn. And I embrace mistakes. I make a
Absolutely. That's something I hear a lot about, you know, people that are wildly successful is like they fail, but they fail hard, but then they always learn from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
time, then you fall. That's it.
Absolutely.
I mean, and how do you learn if you don't make a mistake? What lesson is there to learn? So I embrace mistakes. I'm okay with them. They don't bother me. I'll admit them. You'll notice the people that won't admit mistakes, you'll know who they are because they're not going anywhere and they're miserable, you know? So
that's a good point. That's a good feel. If you're willing to be vulnerable, what are some of the mistakes that you feel that you've made that you've then like learned from? Because I do remember when we first met, you had said that you had made millions and then lost it all, but then you made it again.
Yeah, so I never really lost it. I knew exactly where it went.
Oh, okay.
No, well, the first time where I signed companies and stuff, but I also had a lot of overhead with signed companies. It was when I got into real estate where I'm really like, dude, what do I do with this money? You know what I mean? Like that's where I was starting to make money, leveraging my brain versus my labor and all this overhead. A big mistake was getting a divorce. You know, I mean, I ended up giving 95% of my stuff away, not because of court. We actually never went to court. We just sat down at a table, and I mean, it was my fault. I mean, she's still one of my best friends today. We've still had one fight since '92. It was not a marriage that should have broke up. It was just I retired at 31, and retirement's a B when you're used to working, you know, 100-hour weeks and you're a go-getter. I didn't know what to do. And then it spiraled into a depression. I ended up living off grid in 200 acres for a couple years. Bought a gas station 2 miles away. And you don't take somebody where there's a town of only 350 people that are living there to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. So
actually, anyways, it was just a rough patch. No excuses. I made a mistake, but I've learned from it. And I'll be honest with you guys. Like, if you were to ask me when the happiest time of my life was, okay, you know what? Before I tell you that, so remind me to tell you that.
Okay.
Now, I'm a little bit different than most. Like, I really like starting over. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. I'd be completely fine just giving up everything and starting again tomorrow. I just love it. I've done it about 6 or 7 times a year. But like, for example, when I came to the United States from Canada, I had a sign company there that was thriving. My friends ended up inviting us to Vegas for 7 days. And it was on the last night. We just really liked Vegas. And I said to my wife, I'm like, hey, babe, do you want to move here? And she looks at me, what would you do for work? You know, we got our company and everything. We looked at the paper. There were 639 jobs there. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll get a job. Now, this is my wife that's never seen me have a job before, right? Yeah. And we had a company and everything, but she was so supportive. And so she's like, yeah, we could live here. So we told everybody we're moving, and nobody believed us because we had a sign company. How are you going to get your sign company in a house and all of that? Well, 3 months later, we lived in Vegas. Gave half of my sign company away to some friends that needed some income, sold half of it. We let people come into our house and take all the furniture that they wanted. And so we literally, I had built a little cargo trailer. We pulled that behind the truck, and that's how we started over. And I'm going to tell you guys, the reason I kind of preface that there is, I still remember to this day when people ask me when's the best time of my life. I'm sitting in the backyard on the patio of the house that we rented in Henderson, Nevada, which is, you can't tell the difference between Henderson and Las Vegas, like, you know, if you don't know the limits. I'm sitting in a $19.99 pool with my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old daughter and my wife. And the heat was barreling down on us. I mean, the heat was just amazing. And I just remember leaning back and saying to her, this is the life. Now listen to this. I gave everything away when we moved here. We had $11,000 is all I came because I'm just like, let's just go make a life. And just kind of let you know where that was. We ended up having a family reunion in Salt Lake about 2 weeks later. Long story short, that 11 grand does not last long. You know what I mean?
No, it does not.
And so I ended up getting a job and stuff was tight. You know, I came to Vegas and I'm like, oh, so I got a job at a sign company, but I'm like, this is a sign capital of the world. You know, I'm all self-taught, so I'm not going to know what I'm doing. And so anyways, I go join this sign company. It got so tough, I took a payday loan out. Now, I don't know if you guys know what a payday loan is, but you're 360% interest rate. Now, I remember one night driving around 2 hours to try to find a payday loan company that wasn't hooked to the other payday loan company so that they would give me another one. And you have to pay them back in a week. And I started I just busted my ass. I didn't ask anybody for money. I could easily, phone somebody, borrowed money. And all I did was bust my butt. I worked 110-hour weeks. And about a year and a half later, I had my own sign company. Year and a half after that, netted 1.7 million in real estate that I'd never been in before. So that's another thing that I like to tell people. Like, you take my brother, for example, always been given everything and whatnot. And always when stuff gets tight, he just makes up a phone call and there's money there. And that's the difference. If you don't do that, you just learn a lot more. You value money, you value how you make it, you value your losses, but you don't value them when you lose money and you can just make a phone call and somebody will lend it to you.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. It takes personal responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, again, another thing, you can tell who doesn't take responsibility for their life and their problems and always has the handouts and who doesn't. And I'm telling you, if you look at a lot of the billionaires of the world, you know, you look at their lives, I mean, they weren't stuck up on education. You know what I mean? It's not, they didn't always have easy lifestyles, but one thing they never did is they never made excuses, you know, and that's the biggest problem is people trying to make excuses of, you know, why this happened. I mean, I could easily be in prison. I mean, most people think I should be with my, you know, with things that have happened to me and stuff, but I'm like, well, what's that? What good is that? You know what I mean? Like I always say, once you're 18, I don't care how you're raised, what stories happened to you. And now it's even earlier because these kids have Google. You know what I mean? Like people ask me, where did I get my financial smarts from and stuff like that? Well, I'm telling you what, not to put down my parents, complete financial idiots. I mean, in the most playful way, like they don't, I mean, they couldn't save $2 for a second day. And my dad used to make like $500,000 a year sometimes. And yet they never owned a home until I did, helped them with an investment opportunity back in like 2008 or something like that. So
yeah, that actually reminds me of something really important that Robert Kiyosaki talks about. And basically in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he says that, you know, like you want to make sure that your income is way higher than your things that are liabilities. So like basically if something makes you money, then it's an asset. But if say like you live in a house and you're paying like every month, then it's not really an asset. It's a liability. It's costing you money. Right. So I think you understood that early on.
Well, houses are a big problem because, people, that's usually the biggest financial decision people make. It's the worst decision they make. And most people listen to their agent like they have all of this profound advice. Well, guess what? All they did was pass a test. You know, I've dealt with many agents. I had 65 rental properties at one time. And I mean, you can get a lady that she's just good at reading a book and passing a test, never bought a piece of real estate, go to her for advice. And so many people do that. The problems with owning a house is, and so you're not willing to treat it like what an asset would be. And what do I mean by that? Because everybody's living on their equity and your equity is not yours. And okay, so do you have a minute? I don't know how long this is supposed to go.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah, we got an hour.
Okay, let's pretend that you and me, we work at the same job. Okay. And we both go, we buy the same house. We're neighbors. I mean, we make the same amount of money per hour. We bought the exact same price of house and everything. Okay. 10 years going down the road. And let's just say the house was 200 grand and you're all about paying off your damn house. Okay. I'm all about getting my money back out. So you have $100,000 equity in your home now. Okay. I still owe $200,000 on my house because I did a refi and took that $100,000 out. Okay. Now I take that $100,000 out and I go put it in an investment, but that's a moot point right now. All right. So now we both get fired. The economy's going down and we both get fired. We get laid off from our jobs and we can't pay our mortgage payments. Okay. Who loses their house first, or do we lose it together?
Would we lose it together, or could you use your investment as like collateral?
No, forget that money. Forget it. I have it over here, but we don't even need that in this conversation right now. Who loses it first?
I guess me.
You do.
Yeah.
Why? The bank can take your house, throw it to auction, and get their money out right away. With me, they'll work with me for 12 to 18 months, rent, mortgage free, just as long as I phone them and say, I'm getting a job and I'm going to get it back on track. I'm going to get it back on track. I'll be able to live in my house 12 months to 18 months free before they actually boot me out. And when back in Vegas, when we had the crash, it got so bad that lenders were now coming to people and saying, look, I'll give you $3,000 if you're out in 1 week. So you were actually getting paid to leave your house, mainly because there was damage and stuff. So my point is, What good was that for you to try to pay off this house? You now just lost it. What happened to your $100,000 equity? It just vanished with the market, and the bank just foreclosed on you. Now, they ended up foreclosing on me, but 14 to 16 months later. So you had to go somewhere else and rent, pay $1,000 a month rent, say. So you're $16,000 over 16 months in rent. I'm living rent free. And now, so I'm already better off than you. But now let's go take that $100,000 investment. Before crypto, let's just say I had it in an investment property, and it was paying me $1,500 a month in rent. You see, so like I'm not licensed, none of that stuff. These are all just for educational purposes. But yes, equity in a home is equity in your personal. Two reasons. First of all, you can also refi, pull that money out and use it, and that's tax-free money. Why do you think Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump and stuff don't finance money? Finance money is not taxable.
Did not know that.
It's not income. So anyways, there's lots of things to do. And now with the crypto world, I mean, come on, get the cash out and throw it into crypto. I have my employees of this company that I'm at right now, and I got them all into crypto. Well, the first one, finally, I got them in about April, and then one of them has already made more in returns than they make in a whole year. One guy over 2 years, meaning here I am teaching my employees, making employees. But and they're finally learning to make money off of money instead of off of their labor. Right, you know, like one of my employees, my highest paid employee, I guess just over 72 grand a year. And I said, hey, how are you doing financially? I just wanted to kind of know a little bit about him. He's like, oh, good. Me and my wife were on a 5-year plan. I said, oh, how's that going? He's like, good. I said, so what do you mean by 5 years? He's like, well, we want to have our house paid off in 5 years. I said, oh, okay. And he said, it's going good. I said, well, how long have you owned your house? He's like, 3 years. Okay. So I said, well, how much did you pay for it? He says 150. So he said the plan was going good. I'm expecting when I say how much do you still owe on it for him to say 60 or 70. So I said, how much do you owe on it? He says 180. 30,000 more than you bought it for. So I look at him, I'm like, so how's your plan going? How is your plan going well when you owe more? And he's like, oh, I guess it's not going very well, is it? And that's just how financially uneducated people are, because they think that they have to learn it from their family. Everybody's got Google. You've got Richard Kiyosaki. You've probably never seen him in person.
Not yet.
You can read his books, and if his books don't change your mind, you know what I mean? There's something wrong. So anyways, long story short, within 8 months of me getting in crypto, he can now pay for his house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. So it's fun.
So, wow. So what inspired you to make that shift from, like hard assets, like real estate, but then saying, okay, like I'm going to ditch the signs, which is a hard asset too. I'm going to ditch the real estate. I'm going to go into digital marketing and, crypto. So it's like you made the transition from like hard asset to like more digital.
Okay, well, I never knew how to make money off of money. I was never taught that. My parents don't have a clue how that works. When I had my sign company in Las Vegas, so here's what happened. I ended up buying a house 4 houses down from that one I rented that I told you about, where I was happy in that little pool, that blow-up pool. So I ended up buying the house 4 houses down. I bought it for 130-something thousand. Anyways, I lived in a year, and I ended up making 40. Like it ended up appraising for 40,000 more. And all it took with no real estate. What? I just made $40,000 by living in this house. Is how I looked at it. So I just said to myself, now, what if I would have lived in a $500,000 house, because it increased, okay? So I'm like, what if I would have lived in a house for $500,000 and it went up 20%? That would have been 100 grand. So then I'm like, how much more would it have cost me to live in a $500,000 home? Okay, and it would have ended up costing me, I think it was $27,000 more for the year. So I'm like, here I could go live in a $500,000 home, cost me $27,000 more, but I actually made, so I've actually, I would have made 100,000, take out the 27, that's 63. That's still higher than the 40, right? And I'm in a bigger home. That's all it took for me to then say and figure it out. And then it just happened that my brother-in-law came to my house because I had my sister over to visit, and they had a kid together, and he was picking her up, and I found out he was in a mortgage company. I'm just like, dude, I wish I could get a mortgage. And he's like, I could get you a mortgage. I said, what? When I was self-employed, so I didn't think I could, and for a bigger house. And then I went and bought my first property. And I should tell you this deal. We got time?
Yeah.
My very first real estate deal. I got to tell it. I've told it so many times in probably hundreds of seminars in Vegas. And it's my very first real estate deal. So I had my sign company. I'm deciding I'm getting into real estate because I wanted to. So I started buying all this stuff online. Joe Crump was one guy's name. I bought all of his audios. So every time I'm driving to my business and going to quote a job, or every time I'm in my truck, I'm listening to this stuff. Now, I didn't know what a subject to was or a short sale. And they kept saying it because that was what Joe Crump was big on, is subject twos. But I just kept listening, and I just kept listening. And when I would get home, I would listen. Anyways, I get to my business, and it's kind of for helping. And that.
That's funny. I do the same thing, but with Tony Robbins CDs. So like I pop it in, and I just like listen to it over and over again. So maybe one day I'll be texting Tony Robbins. Tony, if you're out there, text me.
Yeah, remind me to talk to you about subconscious mind too. So it's very important. But I go to my job, and I'm like, or my company, and I walk back, and I go to Eduardo, and I just tell him, I'm going to get into real estate. And he's like, oh, and I knew his wife was an agent, right? And he's like, oh, well, we just looked at a property, and for 350, for 350 grand, and we turned it down. It was 2 houses on a 1 acre property in the middle of Vegas. And I'm just like, oh, can I go see it? You know, because they turned it down. They didn't see any money in it, right? But so I'm going to look at it with a different set of eyes than they are, right? And so anyways, I phone up Alejandra, that's Eduardo's wife, and I said, hey, can you show me that property? So she goes and shows me that property, and all I see is money. Okay, and I've never done a real estate deal, but I'm just like, dude, 2 properties. Not only that, I just loved it. Was on this 1 acre, and so Circus owned it back in the day, and actually the mob got busted on the neighbor's property. So that's kind of where it is. If anybody has any.
Wow.
Yeah, they used to train their trapeze artists in Circus at this property.
Wow.
So anyway, and then there was like a 1804 homestead there, but in the backyard.
Wow.
Anyway, so I see nothing about money, so I'm like, hey, she says, do you want to put an offer in on it? Now, the guy who owned it had an agent. That's how she found out about it, but he wasn't able to list it because he didn't want it showing, okay? And he wanted to sell it as is. And trust me, it needed work, okay?
Right.
And that's why they didn't want to take it. So anyways, I said, okay, well, no, I don't want to make an offer. I said, but can you hook up a meeting with me and the agent and the owner? Okay? I didn't want to go through 2 agents. Remember, Alejandra, a very smart woman. That other guy, I don't even know who he is. He could have just passed the test. And when you tell a story to one person, as it travels, it changes. So not only that, I want to read that person because I'm going to have different ideas on how I read him. And so that's exactly what happened. She's the only way I'm going to make an offer. I want to hear him sing across from each other. This is a big dude. And we just start talking, and I'm trying to get him down to 300,000. And then he just freaking starts getting irate. He's like, and he just kind of